All right, the Bucks. It is the winter transfer window. It is Talking Buccaneers with me, Fumane. If it's not the winter transfer window yet, and it opens on the 1st of July, at least the window for signing head coaches and free agents is open. And thus, I'm here. Orlando Pirates have signed a head coach and a free player in Abdeslam Ouaddou and Sipho Mbule, respectively. At the time of recording yesterday, we got the notification about the head coach, and today, almost unexpectedly, while we were kind of speaking about, the kit, which they also released today, is they kind of, dropped in there somewhere in the pot that Sipho Mbule has now signed for Orlando Pirates, and he will be cooking for us now. So the way that I want to go about this video is I want to start with, kind of talking about the head coach situation, and then sort of somewhere in the middle, I'll come on to talking about Sipho Mbule maybe towards the end as well, if you stick around. So I'm going to go about it in that way, and I really hope not to be too long because these are my raw, unfiltered, unadulterated, unscripted emotions, feelings, thoughts. Head coach situation, we all know there was a vacancy at Orlando Pirates after darling head coach Padre Jose Rivero left for Al Ahly, and the wind was very much blowing towards son of the soil. I think they call him Mlungisi, Rulani Mkwena. We were led to believe that. We were led to believe that by two things. One, journalists were talking about Orlando Pirates being, I think the wording they were calling is in final stages of negotiations of his contract. And then the second thing being Orlando Pirates marketing team kind of, in their very creative, very graphical way, throwing out cartoons out there, which I don't know if they were aiming to lead us to believe that, but I think we very much concluded that that cartoon was Rulani Mkwena, which, in hindsight, it's obvious that it wasn't. But I must admit, I really thought that. And I think a lot of people thought that. Whether that was Orlando Pirates' intentions or not, I mean, I don't know, to cause that stir, but that, out there on Twitter, or X, as the kids would call it, is, we were very much speculating that looks like Rulani Mkwena, which we now know that is Abdeslam Ouaddou because of the baggy pants. Anyway, just to kind of, before I kind of get onto Abdeslam Ouaddou, Orlando Pirates, I wonder if they really wanted to sign Rulani Mkwena and give him that position and how badly they wanted him. If I was the Orlando Pirates hierarchy, I would have wanted Rulani Mkwena so badly. I think, he obviously divides kind of the fan base for the reason that some people think, the way that he talks on the media, he talks a lot, he's not very trained media-wise. Some people say that those are not my opinions, so don't come for me for that. Some people really think that Rulani Mkwena is not media trained. Whether they're right or wrong, I'm not a media person. Well, I am a media person actually, because I do Talking Buccaneers, but, or maybe when Talking Buccaneers gets to a certain size or whatever, I'll be a media person. I don't know. But I'm certainly not one to know what a media person should behave like or not. So a portion of like fans don't like him for that. Some people, maybe it's to do with his association with Marabastad FC, Mamelodi Sundowns. But I think a lot of people can admit that we really wanted Rulani Mkwena to come, but apparently the talks, or allegedly the talks, fell through because Rulani Mkwena is quite adamant to have certain advisors around him. He wants his technical team around him, which is a very contentious thing in football, because, you know, there's always talk around, for continuity of the club, you want the hierarchy to be hiring the people that are going to be there, because head coach position is a very temporary one. It's usually, if he does well, he's there for 3 years. And, you know, a lot of the time he will leave with his people if he brings his people. Or those people will kind of be moving along and things like that along the way. And so what you want is, you want the hierarchy to be hiring their people, so that, you know, when the head coach is released, you don't have a whole technical team having to be paid the rest of their contracts, because there's a financial implication to these things as well. But there's a continuity thing. You don't want a new sort of 20 people staff now coming and disrupting continuity in the club and things of that nature, which I don't want to get into in this video. But my thoughts, my very naive thoughts that are not trained, think that when Rolando Mokwena wants his team, you give him his team, because that's the level of coach that I think you want to get into your club. Yeah, but in saying that, I'm kind of thinking, because what I want to do in talking about Ouaddou is there are things that I think he brings to Orlando Pirates that Rolando Mokwena possibly will never bring to any club. And then there are things that Ouaddou, I want to talk about, that I don't think he will bring to Orlando Pirates. And I'm ready to get slaughtered by maybe half of the fan base, because I understand that he's another one who's now dividing the fan base. And here's why I think he's dividing the fan base. A lot of the fan base are looking at this as, hey, because Jose Rivero has proven us wrong, therefore we're going to extrapolate every time that Orlando Pirates hires a head coach whom is not very, his reputation isn't glamorous and things of that nature, is that we're now going to extrapolate and think that he's also going to do well, or at least we owe the club to trust him. Because what happened is, when we hired Jose Rivero, we questioned, you know, Orlando Pirates, and now we look silly because he has gone on to bring some success to Orlando Pirates, recording, you know, while at it, the highest points tally that any head coach has brought to Orlando Pirates since the inception of the PSL, I think, which is about 27 years ago, maybe 28 years ago now. And you football nerds will correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was 28 years ago, 1997, when the PSL was now the PSL as we know it. And yeah, for that reason, I think Ouaddou now splits the fan base. Some of the fan base are saying we owe the club and Ouaddou to trust him from get-go. Some are saying, and I must say, I'm part of the other some, which are saying, or who are saying, that where Orlando Pirates is in 2025 July is very different to where Orlando Pirates was in 2022 July. And I mean, I can sort of back up my point by saying that, but I'll get to kind of that if you bear with me. My thoughts are kind of all over the place because I have so much to say. But here's what I think Ouaddou will bring to Orlando Pirates. We know that he's a very well-traveled player. You know, in his playing days, he played in England, he played in France. I think he might have played in both the first and second division. I stand to be corrected. I think he also played in Africa. I stand to be corrected on that too. But at least in Africa, he played for his national team if he didn't play club football. But I do think towards the end of his career, he did play in Africa. But again, football nerds will correct me on that. I don't have the stats kind of top of my head, but sort of his quick snapshot of his kind of playing career, which I was too young to follow at the time, is that, yeah, he's quite traveled, quite experienced. He's played in Europe, he's played in the Premier League, which is, let's be honest, it does very well for your CV if you have played in the Premier League. And here's what I think he'll bring as a head coach to Orlando Pirates. I think he will bring a standard. I think he understands standards of football. Certainly listening to him, listening to his interviews, I think he speaks of that very point, that he knows where African football should be and where it's not. And he's quite vocal about that. He's quite passionate about it too, which I love. He's quite passionate about pushing the needle of, standards. I mean, I'm quite impressed at how he speaks gloriously of the PSL in South African football in terms of its organization, the federation, at least, well, the what do you call it? You guys, like, what do you call this thing? What do you call the domestic organization of like our league and cups, and you guys know what I'm talking about. But that whole organization of our first division, or the national, not the national first division because that's the second tier, the professional game in South Africa, he thinks that it's very organized, it's very professional. He talks very well of people like Jessica Mtaung, which I don't like. He talks very well. I do like Jessica Mtaung. I don't like that he talks about Jessica Mtaung very well. But yeah, he talks about, just the professionalism in the South African game, and he speaks of it as, he loves the country for that very reason, that, he feels like he's at an elite environment when he's in South Africa. And for someone who has played in the Premier League, that holds weight. Right, we can agree about that it holds weight when someone who has played in the Premier League says that the South African game is very professional. Because a lot of us, let's be honest, or maybe some of us, sometimes think, the South African game is far from the levels. And why we think that is because our players really make it to those leagues. And if they do, I mean, they come back. Tashreeq Matthews, very, very like recently was in Dortmund, and you guys name them. You know them, Pesitau, Mongane Zungu. They all come back to South Africa not having, achieved to the level of someone like Steven Pienaar, for example, who was, who came from this very country, but was part of a different era, so to speak. And yeah, it's shocking that he speaks very well of South African football. But anyway, I'm kind of getting to this point that I think he brings an understanding of where the standards should be. He brings that. And so he can talk to someone like Relebogile Mofokeng, who might not be here, by the way, who I think very much won't be here because of the appointment of this coach. Or maybe his parents are thinking, hey, this is someone who knows the international market. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they're thinking, maybe it would do well to have him be, coached by this guy, maybe for one season. I don't know. I'm just sort of speculating. But he holds weight when he speaks to Mofokeng. He holds weight when he speaks to Nkota, and more importantly, Mbogazi as a centre-back, because he was a centre-back as well. When he speaks to Mbogazi about the levels, the standards, when he speaks to Sesane, when he speaks to all these guys, he obviously holds that weight. Whether the language thing is going to be a barrier, I mean, by language thing is going to be a barrier, I don't mean that he can't speak English. He very well can speak English with a French accent, but there's obviously a cultural nuance that Rulani Mkwena understands about having been brought up in Soweto and speaking to a child who has been brought up in a township in South Africa. There's a level of not having to explain certain things to each other because those things are taken for granted that you know. And I understand you because I come from a similar upbringing, which Ouaddou grew up in France, if I'm not mistaken. He needs to learn those things. And so those things are an added layer of learning and kind of a barrier and that sort of thing. And so maybe communication was very interesting to listen to Rulani Mkwena when he was sort of doing his rounds of interviews in the country, just talking about how he found it difficult to communicate certain things at Wydad because certain messages are best communicated in the same language, in the same context, and those sorts of things. And so that whole sort of translator thing didn't work out. Ouaddou doesn't need a translator, he can speak English, but I'm kind of making the point that maybe it would be hard to connect with players. Maybe on a cultural level. Maybe he will, like Rivero, on more of like a footballing level, on a personal level. But yeah, I very much wanted Rulani because Rulani understands South African players. He understands the South African game, and he's a very good coach. Anyway, I think he will bring, if you haven't heard anything the last 5 minutes, I think Ouaddou will bring a level. Will bring a level of understanding where the levels are internationally. I think he will bring that. I think maybe as a mentor for these players, he will be important. He'll be someone they will value having around, you know, or learning from. I do think that he's going to bring a vibe as well. I think he's a very positive, very talkative guy. He looks like he's someone who's a hard worker as well. I mean, there's talks of like 40 pages theses about how Bloemfontein can whatever improve its football and things like that. How Marumo Gallants can partner with a school, the university to use the training facilities and things of that nature. And listen, those things are valuable and I love them. But yeah. I sort of want to say that coming to Orlando Pirates, I don't know if that professionalism is needed, because we know that Orlando Pirates is an elite environment. Let's be honest. So it's almost as though he will come into an environment that doesn't need him to play that role very much. But say there are certain things that you know, he knows about the sort of the professionalism in other leagues, in Europe especially, that he might kind of hint at the club, at the players. I don't think it will happen. I don't think those kind of things like training grounds, whatever, they happen like that, because I don't think Pirates is kind of on that trajectory. Maybe they are, I don't know of it, but where I'm standing, I don't think Pirates is trying to improve on that front. He might bring kind of that might play that advisory role in terms of being more professional, and which Pirates already are, but maybe taking it up a bit up a notch again. He might bring that. But that's as much as I think Ouaddou will bring. Maybe he also kind of, I mean, here's the other thing that I thought. I mean, I also love kind of how he speaks about setting up an environment that helps the player progress. He talks about in Africa, in South Africa, we've got very talented players who, especially in Africa where he was at AS Vita and left controversially, he speaks of how the environment was kind of betraying the talent that is in Africa. It's like, you know, the infrastructure is the reason why these players, some of these players, this is my conclusion, the infrastructure is often the reason why some of these players don't make it and go and play, because we do produce the players, but they get overtaken by the infrastructure and the development processes that other leagues and other countries bolster their players with, where by the time, if these two kids get into an academy system at 6, by the time this one is 12, he's learned so much and has a lot of infrastructure to kind of, you know, improve him as a player, than this one who will not develop as much. Maybe he'll develop because he's got a talent, but we know about technology and all of these things in football that will also help bring a player to peak performance. And yeah, he talks a lot about those things. And for that reason, I kind of conclude that he's someone who's very passionate about developing players, which I love. I mean, we saw, or we know that Orlando Pirates is it seems like it's a mandate for a head coach now, or maybe it will be going forward, that, hey, you've got to feed our first team with our own players from our own feeder teams, which is the DDC and School of Excellence. Maybe Chipa United, some would say. But young players that are coming under, you know, from like the development ranks of Orlando Pirates, it seems like we'll be in good hands with him, because he loves to develop players. But I fear, because he's also quite a pragmatic, and maybe now I'm going into some of the things that I think he won't bring, sort of that risk, because he seems like he's very pragmatic. And some would say it's a good thing to be pragmatic, because we want to win. And maybe I will contradict myself a little bit, but I want to say that he's quite pragmatic to a point that I fear. I mean, he talks about his mandate at Marumo having been that he has to save the club and they shouldn't get relegated, which he did to his credit. Did Marumo get relegated? No, they didn't. No, they did not. I'm sorry. I'm now kind of like, my mind is all over the place. It did not. In fact, his record is quite good. I think he won like 4 out of 8 games, something like that. But he kind of lost less than he won and drew, which is good. Yeah, it's good. He's got the record in his 12 games or so, or like 8 to 12 games. I think he's got a very positive record. He's got more than a point and a half, which means that he wins 1 out of 2 games, pretty much. You know, he's like points per game average is sort of like 1.5, something like that. In South Africa, I'm talking about in 12 games, which is like a very short span. But like in those 12 games, he promised that they won't get relegated and they didn't, which is good. Which is that, you know, he said something and he backed it up with results. I love that. But he talked about the fact that because they needed to not get relegated, he kind of tweaked sort of his philosophies about football, his ideas to save the situation. Like, we need to win. And so the first thing we're going to talk about is defense, which is, to be fair, when you build a team, you start from the defense. And I think that's why he will love Orlando Pirates, because the defense is looking pretty good. I think, well, at least 3 or so players in my eyes are really, you know, top level. So he won't need to do a building thing about, hey, we need to send. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. But I fear for that, because I don't want a win at all costs coach. Don't get me wrong. I want a coach who will win at all costs, but I don't. And what I mean by that is I want someone who knows how to win beautifully, but win. Win being the operative in the sentence, and the most important thing is that I want a head coach who will win at Orlando Pirates, but not at all costs. And the not at all costs in the sentence means I don't want him to play or desert playing beautiful football that we will go to Orlando Stadium to go and enjoy just because we have a mandate and he has a CV to make look beautiful. We want someone who will come to Orlando Pirates and he will make us enjoy going to the stadium, right? But win he must. We want to win. And that's not sort of like my second standard. Winning is my first standard, but playing beautiful football is my first standard as well. Those things go together in my eyes. And for that reason, I kind of wonder if he's the right man. I think he's the kind of person who will maybe go into a 5, a 6 at the back and things of that nature. And I don't want to sit through an Orlando Pirates versus Mamelodi Sundowns and watch us play Hoto and I mean, another left back, sort of 2 left backs and 2 right backs, because we're trying to salvage the point. Not even in competition, not even in the Nedbank Cup. I want to win the Nedbank Cup this upcoming season. I want to win the MTN 8 this upcoming season, but I don't want to win it in that way. I want us to go and to dominate the ball. I want us to go end to end with Mamelodi Sundowns or whatever team that's gonna give us a run for our money. I want us to go end to end, which I don't think there is actually. Now that I think of it, it's just Mamelodi Sundowns. I want us to go end to end. I want us to, when we go to CAF, I want us to go and dominate position away, and I want us to win like football games. That's where I want us to go. I don't want us to be the underdog anymore. I want Orlando Pirates to be the upper dog. You know, I want Orlando Pirates to be the top dog. And I think it's that very reason that I very much doubt that he's got the pedigree for that. A lot of people are saying, hey, you've got to believe in you know, these coaches and kind of give him that platform. I think where he's taking Orlando Pirates, it's not where it needs to give a coach a platform. I think Marumo Gallants is where he should get a platform to try out and prove his pedigree, his tactical nous and all of those things. And when you come to Orlando Pirates is a very elite environment when you come to Orlando Pirates, this is how I think of it. If you hear nothing, this is my summary of how I think of Orlando Pirates. Orlando Pirates is a place where you come as a player having already played 100 top flight games, except if you're Nkota or Mufukeng and you come from our system. You come to Orlando Pirates with 100 games under your belt because you've got a proven record of what you can do. And you are coming to Orlando Pirates to come and win trophies. You are not coming to Orlando Pirates to come and build projects for another 3 years. We've already done that. We are at the 3rd year. The 4th year is the year to challenge, not the year to start a new project. And, you know, having said that, I want to sort of concede to say Pirates has kept the technical team and added this piece, which is Ouaddou. Maybe he will kind of take it up a notch because the base is kind of much still the same, even though obviously he's not the same person as Herrero, but it's still the same team, and he will kind of take it up that I'm willing to bet that's what they think, right? And we're going to be proven in sort of 10 games, 20, 30, and then 1 season, 2, 3, and whether this was the right call. But where I sit right now, which is on this chair, is I don't think that this is the pedigree of coach who wins the league this season. I think he's another one who might do a project where at the end of 3 years, we might be excited about certain prospects and things like that, and how we play maybe and things like that. But I don't think that he's going to be cutthroat and win the league for Orlando Pirates. And that's what I think. I think he's not going to bring that. I don't think he's going to bring those levels in terms of proven record and things like that. I think he's still got a lot to learn. I mean, he has learned as an assistant coach too. They talk about, you know, he shadowed the best coach in Africa and all of those things. I think to shadow a coach and to be one is two different things. Ask Mangoba Mngqithi about that. Shadowed Pitso Mosimane for very long. But when Mangoba Mngqithi was the man at the helm, it just proved to be too hot at Mamelodi Sundowns. He could definitely be at the helm at Golden Arrows, don't get me wrong, and very much is at the level of head coach in South Africa. But I think at the level that Mamelodi Sundowns wants to be at, and with the ambitions that they have in that club, Mangoba Mngqithi is just, is just not at that level. And this is what I think about Ouaddou. I think right now, at this point in his career, given that he comes from Marumo Gallants, he comes from AS Vita and Nancy under 19 and youth teams and all of those things, I think he's not yet at the level where Jose Rivero has left the club. I think Jose Rivero, when he came to Orlando Pirates, wasn't at the level where Orlando Pirates is now. I wouldn't hire the Jose Rivero who left Finland at Intertuku in 2025 because that's not the level of manager or head coach that you want at the club right now. Where the club is right now, it's do or die. I think we either start again or we go forward. We take the next step. And that's precisely my point. I don't think Ouaddou is the next step head coach. I think he's the head coach that Jose Rivero was 3 years ago. And maybe that's disrespectful to Jose Rivero because Jose Rivero had a much more proven record at Intertuku than Ouaddou has right now. And for that reason, I think we've got the reason to doubt. And I hate this talk about when we doubt a head coach, everyone is kind of like slaughtering us. Guys, we've got the right to doubt head coaches when we don't have their proven record. This is a big club. This is not Kaizer Chiefs. This is Orlando Pirates. We need someone who's proven. We need someone we know is going to bring guaranteed success right now. That's what we're gunning for. We're no longer gunning for stability and things of that nature. Jose Rivero has done that. We've got a very stable squad right now that has the potential to challenge. I know, you know, Mamelodi Sundowns has got the backing, it's got the financial whatever, and it's got years of stabilizing that club. Orlando Pirates has, at best, 3 years of foundation, which is good enough to challenge at least for one season, at least for one PSL trophy. And we need someone who's that good to do it at least for one season. And then we can think about, revamping sort of structural things which will give us like prolonged success, which I think if we want to compete with Sundowns on that level, it's going to take us a couple of years. But toppling them at least for one season, I think it's possible. But I think it will take a very, very, very good head coach who's got a very good squad at his disposal. I think that coach was Rulani. I think Rulani knows the country. I think he knows Sundowns. I think he knows the players. But I don't want to talk about Rulani. I'm just trying to drive a point about Ouaddou's deficiencies. Then I want to wax lyrical about Rulani's brilliant attributes. But let me leave the head coach talk there. You guys say something if you disagree. You're free to do so in the comment section and that sort of thing. You're very much open to do that. Sipho Mbule, I'm going to keep this short. I think, obviously Ouaddou speaks very highly of him. And I wonder if this is something which is like, okay, we're going to do the head coach and then we're going to give him the player that he wants, which is great. I think the fact that he already believes in the player will give the player confidence. Not that Sipho Mbule is lacking of confidence. Don't get that twisted. Sipho Mbule will play at any environment without someone being his cheerleader. He's that good. He believes in his ability enough for all of us, But I think the added layer that Ouaddou already loves him, I think will set him up for success. Obviously, there's... and I know you guys already knew this was coming. There's the behavioral aspect with Mbule, right? Mbule is a very talented player who's got issues, I think. I think he's got issues of maybe not being as professional as he should be. This is stuff that we kind of gather from like the media and stuff. Well, people like me, I'm not in the dressing room. I don't have people in the Sundowns dressing room or the Supersport or the Skukune. But yeah, it's been like reported more than once that he's not showed up to training or he's shown up in a condition that shouldn't have. Sundowns released him. They gave him an opportunity at Skukune. Skukune let him go as well, and Sundowns wasn't willing to take that risk, which understandably so. I think Cardoso and like the Sundowns hierarchy are very much disciplinarians. I think Pirates is kind of risking it. Pirates is taking a risk, and what's affording Sipho Mbule the risk is his talent. I think he's far more talented than Zungu, who we released in similar circumstances a couple of seasons ago, who was a very talented player. But I think Sipho Mbule is just that much more talented. He's just a notch higher than people like Zungu. But Pirates obviously afforded him an opportunity. They loaned him out to Richards Bay at some point and kind of did this and that to kind of salvage him and maybe help him see if he can kind of gather himself and be professional and respect his talent and his opportunity that he has. But we know how that story went. I think Pirates is saying, let's risk him for one season. He's 27 years old. He got released by Mamelodi Sundowns. But yeah, the fact that we don't have to pay a fee for him and what we could get for a good 15 games from him, if maybe then he starts with these scandals, would be of value to us. And you know what? I agree with Orlando Pirates on that stance. I think Sipho Mbule for one season, in the 15 games that he will give you in the midfield of Orlando Pirates, is worth the risk. There's very few players in the country who can produce that sort of output. And by output, I'm not talking about numbers and like stats and stuff like that. I'm just talking about just sheer dominance and control. Sipho Mbule is the kind of player who controls the game. And we hear a lot about controlling the game. But think about what it means for someone to control something, someone to drive a car, to drive a ship, to drive whatever. That's Sipho Mbule on the pitch. He's directing where the game is going. He's doing it. He's getting the ball and saying, okay, my team is scoring now. I know I'm sort of being, exaggerating a little bit, but those of you who have watched him will know what I'm talking about. He dictates the tempo of the game. He dictates the game. And he just oozes, he's very much class, I think. He's very talented. And I don't think we have a midfielder at Orlando Pirates who's as talented as Sipho Mbule, I must say. Talent Mbata is, was very much promising, at least some 6 months ago. He's also kind of fell out of form. I do think there's a player in Talent Mbata, but I don't think Talent Mbata is as good as Sipho Mbule. There's no way. Talent Mbata found out when we played against Sukukune that Sipho Mbule is, you want Sipho Mbule to be your teammate. Linda Mtambo knows that. Linda Mtambo is very much in the media speaking about that very fact, that you want Sipho Mbule as your teammate. And yeah, Silepe has him now. Dancing, he has him. Lebkhile Mfugeng, if he stays, he's got Sipho Mbule. Nkota, you've got Sipho Mbule now. He's gonna find you. He's gonna get the ball to you. That's what we want. We want someone who's gonna get that ball from Sbisi and he's gonna get it to Nkota, without us having to go long. Someone who's gonna just penetrate through the center, and we've got the player. But I think at least we've got him for 15 games. And I think then it will be worth assessing whether he's someone that we want to keep. But I think in those 15 games, he will push the needle that bit higher for us in terms of dominating games and controlling them. And that's where I leave it with him. I'm not going to talk about his behavior. It's up to him, obviously. And yeah, that's the video. Up the mighty Bucks. Cheers. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video from Talking Buccaneers. If you did, please hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all our future content.